from 2020. It's kind of interesting to me that it seems like there's been quite an improvement for this either time of year or cohort or whatever. That if you look at the ultimate pass rate, the PT schools are well into the 90s. There's only one that's in the low 90s, which is Methodist, but still 90s, and then on average, several points above the national average. So that looks very good. When you look at the community colleges, even those have come up, and again, at least are about 4+ points over the national average. So I think I don't know whether it's that there's so much more focus on taking the exam and passing it because of COVID and not having to go through that again, or what it is, but there's definite improvement. And, one of our last items there in this section has to do with South College, and I had written to PM DeMint and about their scores, and she had provided a response back in March that is attached to this, but even their scores are significantly better than they had been. So hopefully that the measures that they're taking are being very effective. Does anybody have any comments or questions about 2020 or any prior years on the score reports? We have also just provided the annual report to the North Carolina community colleges with the scores from the 2020 cohort and then updated scores from the 2019 cohort. If you visit their website, they have some comparison data that I think helps maybe, and well, for lots of reasons, it helps look at the success rates of the community colleges. And so if somebody was looking to go to PTA school, with the state community colleges, then, they could make an assessment about how successful that program is or not. And we continue to provide that information upon their request. If anybody's aware of any updated information related to schools, we'd be glad to take that, similar to the board contact information. Always glad to receive that. The programs continue to have some evolution and leadership. And so it's always good for us to know who it is so we can reach out and talk to them about, sort of how we can interface with them and make their jobs easier. And especially with AAP now, there is a different process for applications, and it's good for us to talk to them. You have the 2021-2022 exam schedule and score date notification. I would take some of this with a grain of salt because, as you know, around surrounding these exam dates, they're still offering windows for people to test in. And so, it isn't exactly as written. So at least not, I'm going to say, for the first half of 2021. So just keep that in mind. And I am sure the licensing staff will kind of keep you apprised of when they might need some additional board member availability and support to review applications for licensure. Debbie and I continue to do school presentations on regulation. Debbie mentioned that the High Point presentation on Friday, it's going to be a little hybrid of regulation and how to do your application. And these things are all virtual. Had a real good experience doing it with Duke. Hopefully Wingate will be a similarly good experience. I've always enjoyed going down there, but virtual, it kind of depends on how their curriculum works. Debbie mentioned her communications related to all the programs, and then some specific follow-ups related to the AAP, and those are attached there for your review. And then finally, the response from Pam DeMint about South College and their efforts with their changes to their curriculum, et cetera, to improve their pass rate scores. which they've demonstrated since we communicated with them earlier in the year. Moving on to ethics. Some of these are kind of standing items on the agenda just because they're always there for your reference about how to do your ethics training, when and how to do the SEI. And then we always stop and take a moment and look at the compliance report and just remind everybody who's due when. It looks like Dr. Garcia is due January 24th, 2021. Get to have the super fun opportunity to do some online education. Then who else? Looks like Ms. Kessler is also due in January of 2021. And then others have a little bit longer before they have to do it. And then, as you know, put it on your calendar. Your SEI is due by April 15th. And so please, it looks like you can do that a little bit early, but, it is due by tax day. So please remember to do that. That is a state ethics commission compliance requirement for which delinquency can be charged $250. So we don't want anybody to miss it because they were unaware of the requirement to do it. If you ever have difficulty, let me know. You can submit a voucher for your time completing the ethics training. So if you need an additional one, just let us know and we can provide that to you. In addition, there is the Ethics Commission Holiday Newsletter. This is education for board members, just about situations that you may encounter, the gift ban, and we're not getting together this year. And John usually does the exciting rendition of gifts at the holidays, but we're not together, and that isn't as relevant for this year. So take a look at that. It's always interesting to read about what you are supposed to do. It's a good reminder since we're not doing that on a regular basis. The next section is just follow up to how the board responded to scope of practice question considered at the last meeting. We are trying to be consistent about posting the recent board scope of practice decisions on the website so that people have access to recent decisions, and we can also direct others there when they ask the question if they weren't able to find it in their review. Okay. PT licensure compact. These are mostly FYIs that the bylaws, rules, and policies and procedures were updated in October at the annual PT Compact Commission meeting. Minutes are available for your review from that meeting. And we are required to complete statutory requirements in order to remain outside of any delinquency within the compact. And those items are making sure that we have FSBPT IDs associated with every licensee. And eventually, we've already done it. This past quarter, we switched over from using social security numbers to FSBPT IDs as the unique identifier. And that's sort of an ongoing task, only because, as people kind of go in and out of the compact and they discover, certain things that were in error, and we fix them upon request. We are also required to report any license encumbrances, disciplinary actions, or any licensees that are under investigation. So after each investigative committee meeting, after each board meeting, I go into fsbpt.net, set the flag so that anyone who uses fsbpt.net can see that. And if that has any influence over something that might happen in a remote state, they have access to be able to see it. I then go in when we dismiss cases and take it out. And then, for example, I'll go in and set the flag today for the things that we considered during the closed session, but they do not become effective for at least 30 days because those individuals have an opportunity to appeal, and then we make it final once those 30 days have passed without any additional action. We also are responsible for sharing our data weekly with the FSBPT, who shares it with the compact, so that everybody's information is current all the time. And at renewal time, you know, we may have additional things to add because people are reporting things that they wouldn't necessarily report throughout the year. So the board, or the compact executive board, well, they considered public comment to the rules, bylaws, and policies and procedures. David Gadd made a recommendation, which resulted in an update of the particular rule in the compact, and so that was good. I think as far as the compact goes, if you have a compact privilege and you have a criminal conviction, you have to report that to both your home state and your member state. Now, our state rules don't require it right now, but I think that is one of those things that's going to be considered at the rules committee when they meet. And otherwise, we're only asking that question once a year instead of requiring individuals to disclose whether they've had a criminal conviction throughout at some other point throughout the year, which might be relevant to their licensure status. And then lastly, the PT Commission sends out periodic updates, and this is the recent update from the Compact Commission. There are lots of videos on their website if you're interested in knowing more about specific aspects of the Compact. And we held a successful virtual meeting, and I mean that's about that story for this year. There are states that are continuing, whose legislatures are in session, are continuing to add their statutory language to their state. And I may be embarrassed in a second. There was a new state that came in as Pennsylvania. So, the compact continues to grow, and the goal for 2021 is to have 35 states in the compact. So lots of places where you can move in amongst and between with a license or with your compact privilege pretty easily. This next section is all of the either reports to the states, requests that we've had for information, other compliance type requirements that we continue to meet. And there is always a significant amount of work that's done during the third quarter. A lot of things are due during the third quarter. And then these additional reports, the interim report on regulatory flexibility. There was a AHEC workforce survey that we needed to complete. I mean, that thing was quite a few pages asking about what workforce needs could be during the pandemic. Are you being provided with PPE? What should some procedures and policies be? So, we weighed in on that. I think it was hard as the board to do that because we are not necessarily boots on the ground, and everybody has their individual perspective. So we tried to answer those questions as best we could. And like we already mentioned, the submission to the community college system of PTA annual score reports. As far as board technology goes, I asked Greg to submit sort of the overview, oh heavens, of the IT department's goals and priorities, and they track their actions in ClickUp. So what you're going to see here in this report, when you review it, is how they think through, they as a information technology team think through their projects. They're in a planning phase, the planning's done, then they start working on it, then they test it and test it for quality, and then they complete it. So this is Greg showing activities for the last quarter, and it's been very, very busy. Likely whatever the licensing staff is doing is also happening in the IT department. So, never dull moment, as well as the renewal updates that they implemented. So lots of good work being done there. Okay, so we really have just one question that we need to consider, which is the question that we brought up at the last meeting, but because both Pearl and Crystal were unable to join us, we needed to revisit that at this meeting. And so the question was about lumbar spinal traction being performed by physical therapist assistants. And so that's the question that we need to determine. And then the second attachment in here that you may want to look at if you haven't had the opportunity is the research that was done by Debbie Reagan relating to where it's taught in curriculums in the state of North Carolina, and then other input. She's got APTA in here, other continuing education courses, to help us determine if it meets that Rule 48C 0101. Is it routinely taught in entry-level education, continuing education, and routinely performed in practice? So I should stop here and see if anybody has any comments or discussion before I continue. Okay, so without the benefit of having the PTA members, Debbie also reached out to the PTA members, and it looks like there might be some use of manual lumbar traction by PTAs on our board, but in their research, we couldn't find that it was consistently taught in entry-level education. And so in my estimation, it doesn't meet the criteria of the rule. And in the past, we have crafted a statement that basically says that it is not considered part of the PT scope of practice because it doesn't meet or the PTA scope of practice at this time because it doesn't meet the criteria of the rule. So maybe Pearl and Crystal, do you have anything you would like to add to that commentary?
Not specifically. Like I say, I, had sent you guys an email back kind of in my experience and, that I was instructed in my program, but then I learned more techniques through continuing education. But as far as like in the years I've worked in the PTAs that utilize it, that have been trained in it, it's, it's not been a large number.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I talked to some people about that, and they don't do manual mobilization, but do mechanical, and that's PTA's doing that over the years is mechanical
right.
lumbar stabilization. And I reached out to Lynn McDonough at FTCC, and I think what they just go roundabout kind of saying this is what happened when you do this and this, but don't teach how to do that technique, but do, the mechanical.
Yeah, I noticed that she said that they do, demonstrate some of it or teach some of it, but then they don't do any competencies with it. So
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
clinical technique that is, it's a competence issue because it's something that a PTA would perform in the clinic.
Right.
And so because of that, that's the, sort of the one of the prongs that of this rule.
I think what's getting it is the word manual modes.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of stopping it for PTA is that it's a manual mode. So it's more like that's an assessment of what you're doing rather than doing a treatment through a treatment plan.
Yeah, because because you're required to assess as you're doing it to determine whether you need to adjust it, then it
Yes.
falls outside the PTA scope.
I
Debbie,
did think, yes, I did think that the Academy of Orthopedic Physical Therapy were pretty firm in their language of how they felt about this, and it to me they were clear.
Okay, so what we would do is work with David Gadd to create a statement that would indicate that the reasons that it would fall outside the scope of PTA practice is because it requires assessment, and then it doesn't meet the criteria of 48C 0101. So does everybody agree with that? And Debbie and I can follow through with the response.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any objections? Okay. Thank you. Again, I duplicated this, but this is just a reminder to, if you had signed up for it, it looks like you still have opportunity to take a look at the APTA NC annual course offering through APTA Learning Center about musculoskeletal ultrasound, because that will be a scope of practice question that comes back around at a later point. And we're up to the annual election of officers and appointment of MSPPT delegates and standing committee members. I think that a couple of things, because we know that Teresa and David are being reappointed, and at this time Pearl is still a board member. We could probably go ahead and complete the elections without any difficulty, because we're pretty clear who's going to be on the board, at least for right now. Secondly, I would like to say that I think it is helpful if we have, for each of the officer positions that are being elected, that we have a nomination period, allow everybody to either self-nominate or nominate someone. And just to state out loud, every board member is eligible to be an officer. By virtue of the fact that you are a board member, you are eligible to serve as an officer. And I just want to be clear about that. So with that, our chair, Teresa Hale, we will conduct the elections.
Okay, so at this time, you've already had a chance to review and below all the opportunities for leadership within our board. So I have served as chair for this crazy COVID year. And so there are several positions available. The office of chair is available. The office of secretary treasurer, vice chair is available. Committee nominations would be investigative committee, rules committee, and finance committee. So those are the areas that are open, and I'd like to start with let's go into rules and finance and investigative committee first.
Madam Chair, let me just say those are chair appointments, and certainly you can take the nominations for them, but then the newly elected chair makes the appointments.
Okay.
So however you want to, what order is fine. We just do the nominations, and then the board chair will.
Okay. Well, let's go to board chair nominations then. So would anybody like to throw your name in the pot as board chair?
I'd like to nominate Teresa to serve again.
I will second that.
That was Leslie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Are there any other nominations for board chair?
This is Crystal. I seconded Leslie's recommendation for Teresa to serve again.
Thank you. And actually, these nominations don't require a second.
I know. I was just saying
Oh, you would like to say that also. Great, got it. Sorry, thank you.
And I'd like to third it.
Okay. Leslie, this is your third year on the board. So I was going to nominate Leslie Kessler to be board chair next year.
I appreciate that thought, Teresa, but I think you've done an outstanding job with adapting to the new technology and formats, and I would like to suggest that you continue to roll with that.
Okay. I suppose at this point, if there are no other nominations, we are supposed to vote on board chair for 2021. So all those in favor of Teresa Hale being board chair next year, please let it be known by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? Okay. Any abstainers? No. All right, then I guess.
Thank you for being willing to serve, Teresa.
You're welcome. Okay. So now we need to select, nominate, vote on a vice chair, secretary treasurer, and I'm open for nominations for that position.
I nominate Crystal for secretary treasurer.
I second it.
Well, I was going to nominate David Edwards.
Okay, Madam Chair, how does that work?
It's a nomination.
We have two nominations on the table, David and Crystal. Are there any other nominations?
Well, you can take
both
off and put David if that's what you want. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Okay. So Crystal, are you still willing to be on the roster?
I have no opposition to it, but I just wanted to give another person a chance to serve in a role, so that's why I suggested David serve.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other nominations? Okay, so we have two people nominated to serve as our vice chair, secretary treasurer, David Edwards and Crystal. So let's take a vote. All those in favor of David, please raise your hand.
Looks like I'm outnumbered.
And all those in favor of Crystal, please raise your hand. Okay, I think David Edwards will be our new vice chair, secretary treasurer.
Thank you.
Crystal, thank you so much for serving in that role. We really appreciate it.
Hey,
Thank
Crystal,
you for the opportunity.
we will be doing my training over a glass of wine.
That sounds perfect.
Or a dirty martini.
Yeah,
Or both.
martinis work too.
Thank you.
Okay,
They
the
will not be
Can I
served at
ask
a
a
board
question
meeting.
about that? You said vice board chair and secretary treasurer. I thought the secretary treasurer was one thing, but I didn't know the vice chair was part of that.
It's not a vice chair. It's the secretary treasurer who serves if the chair is unable. They serve as the chair.
So I'm
Okay.
sorry, I called it vice chair just because I know they're responsible for serving if the chair is.
That's fine. That title just threw me for a second.
Sorry about that, Pearl.
Just call it a catch-all.
Okay, the next committees that we need to appoint are investigative committee, rules committee, and finance. So before I appoint somebody, I'd really like to have people who want to do this. So I think the most time-consuming committee is most definitely the investigative committee. They meet quarterly for half a day. There are many emails back and forth about cases and private investigator reports. I have served on the investigative committee for the last 2 years, and I would be very happy for someone else to have that opportunity. It is an awesome responsibility and opportunity. So is there anyone on the board who has a deep desire to serve on the investigative committee?
And that position needs to be filled by a PT.
Oh, it does have to be. Yes.
Yes.
Teresa, I have served in that capacity before, and I'm willing to do so again. But I'm quite content with you continuing, or another board member. So I'm willing to serve on any of the 3 committees that you would, if you see fit to do that.
Okay, Leslie, thank you.
Teresa, I've gotten the rules and the finance down pretty good. So if Leslie would do the honor of investigative, then I would be happy to continue with the other roles.
Okay, anybody else?
I was going to say I would be willing to serve on the investigative if needed.
Okay. Anybody else? I guess that's it, actually. Leslie, Jamie, David, and me. So,
We typically have 1 to 2 people on the rules committee. So if anybody's interested, there can be another person there. And then finance and audit typically is the secretary treasurer and another board member.
Okay, so it would need to be somebody in addition to me.
So I can stay on the finance and audit committee since I've done that as the secretary treasurer.
okay.
I've done rules before, but like I said, I'm willing to do whatever at the chair's pleasure.
All right. I think at this time, I need David and Crystal, go ahead and do finance committee.
Okay.
Leslie, I think for this transition, it would be good for you to do investigative committee, realizing that Jamie would be the natural one to do that next year. And Jamie, could you serve on the rules committee?
Would you like
Yes.
Jamie to go ahead and do it this year? Because it really takes you a bit to get up to steam, and I've got 1 more year. Hopefully I'll be reappointed, but not necessarily. But Jamie would have the opportunity to serve 2 consecutive years, if I recall the terms correct. Is that Jamie's term ends in 2022?
Yes.
And mine in 2021. So as far as, I just don't think it's in the best interest of the investigative committee for it to turn over to a different board member every year.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a learning curve on that one. Just my opinion.
Okay. Jamie, are you willing to take that on?
Yes.
You can do it.
Thanks.
Do it. You've got a really good resource in Kathy and David Gadd. And
Okay, great.
I would be happy to help mentor you through that process, because it is like drinking water from a fire hose.
Okay.
And then we just need the rules.
Okay, Debbie Reagan is our rules guru. If you serve on the rules committee, Debbie Reagan will definitely guide you and ask your opinions about things and make some decisions. So anybody interested in serving on rules?
I'd be glad to continue that.
Anybody? Debbie, do you need 2 on that committee?
I think 3 brains equals 1 good one.
All right.
It's not required. We have had one before.
Teresa, I'm willing, but again, flexible.
Okay.
Teresa, I think Leslie's knowledge would probably be a good asset for the rules committee.
Yes, I would agree. Thank you, Leslie. So Debbie, Leslie, and David will advise you on rules.
Yes.
Vice versa, Debbie will advise you all on rules.
Thank you.
Okay, I think nominations and elections and appointments are concluded.
We've got one more thing to do, Madam Chair, which is if you would like to do it at this meeting, we can select the FSBPT delegate and alternate delegate. I will say, you know, it appears as though we've kind of got the board established, so I don't have any problem with doing that now and then just to have to redo it. But what I will say is that the role may be slightly different for 2021. I don't think it's clear yet whether they're doing that in person or not. I've gotten very mixed messages about whether we're having this meeting next year. It's supposed to be in Jacksonville, Florida, but at some meetings they say, see you in Jacksonville, and then other times they talk about continuing on with virtual. So I don't really know. So just so that that's clear, that it's unclear what's being done next year. If you have any, you know, conflicts with travel or whatever in the end of October.
Do we know the date of it?
We should, but let's see. I can look it up real fast.
Well,
Thank
I'm
you.
curious to hear from Pearl about how the delegate training and interaction went this past fall with a virtual national meeting. So what was that like? Pearl, weren't you the chief delegate?
Yes, I think for it to be virtual for the first year, I think it was very well coordinated. It went well the day that we had the voting and the new way of voting. It went well because they gave us a meeting beforehand to tell us what was going on and what was going to happen and what we needed to do. So for the first year of this, I think it went really well.
I do too.
I was a teller on that meeting, and you know, they asked me like 6 months in advance if I would be a teller. Did never occur to me that we were going to do this meeting virtually. And I must have sat through literally 10 hours of training. And
Oh my goodness.
there is nothing that the Federation does that is not done well and planned and practiced. So, you know, from my perspective, because I was doing 2 Zoom meetings at the same time, and you had to then talk to people on the phone, it was run very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did great with their training, and you know, from the resolutions committee. I mean, we obviously had to change up how we did things and how our meetings went, and you know, our windows for people to be able to bring issues to us and kind of set up times, and and they handled everything really well.
Great. So whether it's in person or virtual, I think that you can be assured of proper training and participation at a very
Yeah.
professional level with the FSBPT.
I missed the meeting that they put on because it's always a very informative meeting, but
I've actually never been a delegate, so I'd kind of like to do that if it's okay with y'all.
mhm.
And then we need an alternate delegate.
You would still attend the meeting and then you would serve in the case that, and be the voting delegate in the case that the primary delegate was not able to perform their duties.
I'll nominate Jamie so she can get an idea of what they do at the FSBPT board.
Okay.
Thank you. My reluctance is that my daughter's getting married in October and we don't have a date.
Wow,
That makes sense.
that's important. David, would you like to be an alternate delegate?
Do we determine the date?
You know, what I'm seeing on here is that they keep saying we'll share these dates in early 2021. It
Yeah.
is typically the second half of the month, though, David, around the 22nd through the 25th, 6th, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's typically the weekend before the weekend of Halloween, somewhere right in there.
That infringes upon Anne Rice time.
Well.
So
Well, I
No,
suppose we could table an alternate delegate until the first of the year. Or
I'm
March.
willing to serve as the alternate if nobody else wants to.
Okay.
Same here.
All right. Well, we can make that determination in March, can't we, Kathy?
surely.
At the March meeting.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay. Just so you know, in one of the last FSBPT news briefs, they seem to be soliciting those who would like to run for FSBPT Board of Directors by the end of the year this year. So if you have any interest in running, you know, I would highly encourage it. I know they need a secretary treasurer, and I think the board of director position, one of the 3 board of directors position, you can be a board member. That one's up this year. So, you know, I would encourage anybody to do it. You know, you certainly get a whole lot of education, even just being a nominee. So, just FYI, send your name in if you're interested.
Leslie, what did you do with FSBPT?
I was on the foreign credentials when they had that subcommittee, but that was with all the rule changes and stuff, things, that committee was pretty much disbanded.
But that committee did some awesome work, and you know, all the resources that have been created over time are still available and very useful to someone in my role to go back and look at. Okay, so now are we concluded with the election portion?
I think we are.
Okay. So just a couple of items of note. Regulatory organizations, I imagine you saw, Impetra is being dissolved. FSBPT has taken on the leadership of that organization pretty much since the beginning. And while I don't have 100% insight into the reason that it's being dissolved, it was an agreement between all of the member organizations. And I think COVID has just made it so that it's very hard to focus on activities related to that particular group. You know, when your attention is divided. So that's been dissolved. So we will not be members of that any longer. We are, however, members of CLEAR. And, you know, as David mentioned about FARB, you know, attending regulatory training from some of these other groups is also really useful. And CLEAR has implemented a lot of online training for board members. So if you feel like there's a particular topic, maybe we can look up and see what the training module is, and because of our membership, we probably get reduced rates on participation. So if you're interested in something, please speak up. What I'm also going to say is that FARB has been led or hosted by Dale Atkinson's law firm for years and years and years. And if any of you attended FSBPT's board administrator training or board member and administrator and whatever training, Dale Atkinson is usually one of the featured speakers. Well, he has also stepped down from that role, and they have a new executive director, but I don't know much about that. So at this point, I can't make a recommendation about whether we joined that or not, but that's just an FYI that, now that NCPT doesn't exist, the two member organizations that we might consider are CLEAR and FARB. But we're already a member of CLEAR, and so just know that you could take advantage of those resources if you wanted. Correspondence from the executive director. I kept it limited this time to some things that you guys have not, types of responses I don't think I've ever put in before. The spirometry with post-COVID patients, fascinating. I communicated with the respiratory board ED. He's very helpful, and there's some attachments that, because we have an overlapping scope of practice potentially. And he's helped me before when a PT called about their hospital wanted him to help with proning of patients. And, it was really helpful to have him not say out of hand, no, PT shouldn't do that, but you definitely need to be trained. So that's a good one. We also had a request from one of the schools about supervising students doing telehealth out of the country. And so we got a little help actually from NCPT on that one. But there were lots of considerations that you wouldn't normally think of, like going in and taking over in a country where they may not do things in the same way, either with or without licensure, but you want to work alongside of the in-country individuals, as opposed to kind of taking over, but work collaboratively. The world is getting to be a small place. And then finally, we need to determine the dates for the September 2021 meeting and December 2021. And so looking at the Wednesdays and the Thursdays in September, 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th. I got to look at when I did not look at Labor Day. But that's usually on a Monday, so I don't, but sometimes that holiday week is not always the best. Looks like September 6th. So,
And then
I'm wide open in September.
Okay. Anybody have preference?
APTA is supposed to be doing their annual House of Delegates meeting in September, and I want to say they're planning it for like September 9th through 11th this year. They're moving it from June to September.
Okay. So maybe looking at the second half of the month. So 15th, 22nd, 29th, if everybody still likes Wednesdays. Anybody have a preference?
Paul and I just get to worry about hurricane season then.
Oh, that's right.
Oh boy.
Later September is better than early September.
Sounds like the 29th.
Here lately it hasn't mattered, but
About the 22nd.
Okay.
I vote 22nd as well.
All right.
That works.
Great. And then same decision in December. And, we have on Wednesdays, 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, 29th. 22nd, 29th are very close to the holidays, so that may not be.
I would vote the 1st or the 8th.
Anybody have a preference?
1st
First of the
Probably earlier the better, because sometime in December I'm going to Australia, unless the government cancels another trip like they just did an hour ago. Now they just changed the rules. Any cruises that leave before October 31st, more than 7 days, are now banned.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I had one booked for May.
Mm. So am I hearing December 1st as the selected date?
It's good for me.
All
That's
right,
fine.
December 1st. So hearing no objections, I'm gonna put that down for December 1st. There's time to adjust that if it needs to be, but at least we have a date on the calendar. Obviously we don't know whether we will be meeting in person. So right now I'm gonna plan the meetings remotely, and then we'll need to make adjustments as we need to. Okay. Which brings us to the conclusion of the business, Madam Chair.
Okay. Wow. And somebody
Perfect
call
time.
John Silverstein and tell him it's 1:53. He always gave us grief about these meetings lasting until 4:30 when we met in person. And I swore to him I would never drag a meeting out that late. Please tell him, David.
I will.
He's probably watching on YouTube right
He
now.
probably is.
Probably is.
Are there any other questions or concerns that need to be expressed by the board before we adjourn? Okay, well, thank you all so much for your time today and your ongoing work and commitment to this occupational licensing board. And Kathy and Cindy and Debbie, please thank the whole staff. David, you're listening. I can't see you, but thank you for making things run so smoothly. We all appreciate the help with technology as we continue to do these meetings remotely, likely for the next year. So have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas to everybody. Stay safe, stay close to those you love. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas.